Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Emma Ignashevsky, Corporate Engagement Project Manager at the Good Food Institute. Welcome to our webinar on the U.S. retail market for plant-based foods, co-hosted with the Plant-Based Foods Association and SPINS. By the end of today's session, we hope you'll have a deeper understanding of the multi-billion-dollar market for plant-based foods, which is a key driver of growth in retail sales. This webinar will provide an overview of newly released sales data and insights for plant-based foods in the US retail market using plant-based categories that were created by GFI and the Plant-Based Foods Association by refining standard SPINS categories. Before we dive in, I'd like to go over a few things for housekeeping. First, we will be sending a copy of the presentation to all registered attendees, and we'll be posting the recording on GFI's YouTube channel. We will also send you a direct link to the slide deck. Second, all speakers will be available to answer questions during the last portion of the webinar. You'll see a Q&A button on your screen, and you can feel free to submit questions at any time throughout the webinar. Some questions might be answered directly in that Q&A box via text. So today, after a brief introduction, I'll pass it over to Julie Emmett to introduce PBFA, and then we'll hear from Jeff Crumpton of SPINS. We'll then turn to Karen Formansky of GFI, who will be presenting insights on the overall plant-based foods market and plant-based meat, followed by Julie and Jennifer Holt of PBFA, who will walk us through key insights for plant-based dairy, eggs, and other plant-based categories. And then finally, we'll open it up to some questions. For those not yet familiar with us, the Good Food Institute is a nonprofit think tank that is developing the roadmap for a sustainable, secure, and just protein supply. We are 100% powered by philanthropy. GFI has more than 130 team members around the globe. We have three key areas of focus. Our science and technology team works to advance foundational open access research in alternative proteins, as well as create a thriving research and training ecosystem around these game-changing fields. Our corporate engagement team partners with companies and investors across the globe to drive investment, accelerate innovation, and scale the supply chain all faster than market forces alone would allow for. And then our policy team advocates for fair policy and public research funding for alternative proteins. The key question that we're working to address is how we will feed 10 billion people by 2050 and do so sustainably, efficiently, and safely. Industrial animal agriculture is in the top 2 to 3 most significant contributors to the world's most pressing environmental issues. It uses 75% of agricultural land, yet provides only 33%. Excuse me, I'm getting feedback from someone. Could the other speakers go on mute? Thank you. So industrial animal agriculture uses 75% of agricultural land, yet provides only 33% of the global protein supply. Industrial animal agriculture is also the #1 user of medically important antibiotics. And at GFI, we believe an answer to these many issues is to make the meat, eggs, and dairy that people love in a more sustainable and efficient way. So with alternative proteins, we can make proteins directly from plants, with fermentation technology, or by using animal cell culture. We'll be focusing on plant-based platforms for today's presentation, but it is worth noting that fermentation is increasingly being used as an enabling technology for the alt protein sector. And cultivated meat made by growing animal cells outside of the animal has seen a lot of notable activity, including the first commercial launch in 2020 in Singapore. As part of our work to accelerate the alternative protein space, we see it as vital that companies in the market have access to high-level insights about the size and growth of the plant-based foods market. And by partnering with PBFA and SPINS, we hope this data will help you make the business decisions that will accelerate investment, innovation, and adoption of alternative proteins. Before I hand things over to PBFA, I would like to note that much of the data covered here in this webinar today is available on both GFI's and PBFA's websites, and you'll find the links to those on this slide. And with that, I'll turn it over to Julie Emmett to introduce us to PBFA's work.
Thanks, Emma, and hi, everyone. Plant-Based Foods Association is the only membership trade organization in the US serving as the collective voice for over 350 members, most of which are plant-based food companies. Also includes ingredient suppliers, investors, and other important stakeholders in the industry, including our friends at GFI. PBFA's mission is to champion, strengthen, and elevate our members and the plant-based foods industry. The Plant-Based Food Institute, our sister nonprofit organization, identifies and implements business and policy strategies to create a plant-based food system. The Institute advocates for agricultural policies that promote sustainable food production and nutrition policies that encourage a shift to plant-based diets. PBFA has two primary areas of focus: marketplace development and policy. Our marketplace development work exists to expand unique market opportunities for our members through our partnerships with retailers, distributors, e-commerce, and food service providers. Our policy team advocates for government policies that allow for fair competition. For example, we work at the federal and state levels to ensure that plant-based companies can use terminology that clearly and accurately describes their products. And as part of PBFA's mission, our marketplace development team partners with retailers such as Kroger, Walmart, Ahold, and others to support their goal of changing the retail food environment to meet consumer demand. We conduct merchandising and consumer research along with data analysis to share with the industry and to expand access to plant-based foods. A couple of examples. In Q2, PDFA will publish a summary of the results of two research projects. The first is a migration analysis utilizing Kroger shopper data. This study measures to what degree consumers are replacing animal-based food with plant-based food to help retailers know how best to allocate shelf space. Additionally, Kroger, in partnership with PBFA, conducted a frozen aisle concept test for plant-based meat to understand optimal merchandising strategy based on consumer feedback. Lastly, we're partnering with FMI on their upcoming report entitled The Power of Plant-Based. The Power of Meat has been published annually for many years, and really look forward to this robust study of plant-based foods, and that will be published in July of 2022. So bringing it back to our overarching goals, together, PBFA and the Institute work together to foster a thriving plant-based foods industry that meets market demand, facilitate a shift to plant-based diets, and promote a transition in agricultural production that is diversified, regenerative, and resilient, based on plants for direct human consumption. With that, I'll turn it over to Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, and welcome everyone. It's great to be with you today. We are, again, really excited to be partnering with both PBFA and GFI on this project. It's several years that we've done this, and really this collaboration is fundamental in providing insight into this rapidly expanding segment of the market. For more than 25 years, SPINS has been empowering data-driven decisions by thousands of retailers and brands and other critical industry partners such as GFI and PBFA. And this deep understanding of the marketplace helps fuel incubation and innovation, providing shoppers with products that meet their health and wellness goals and preferences. SPINS measures the rise through our proprietary product intelligence capability. Really what we want to kind of understand is, our team of natural product experts assess each brand in order to place it within a competitive sphere of the natural and wellness market. And here we're using a positioning group as a holistic brand-wide assessment that takes into account a wide range of factors, both on and off the label. And as you can see, natural and specialty positioned products to the left are significantly outpacing those conventional offerings that we see to the right. So we've referred to these combined two groups to the left as the total wellness product market. And the majority of plant-based products that we're going to be looking at today fall within this portion of the market. Okay, so we see that wellness products are driving growth for over half of US customers who report that they want to eat healthier in 2022. And over 92% plan to continue or increase their at-home meal preparation. And according to the Food Network, and grocery budgets are, because of inflation, expected to climb by about 15% this year. And that's according to our friends over at Food Dive. With currently 32 million Americans having food allergies and 86% of consumers reviewing nutrition labels when shopping, health and wellness is indeed top of mind, and plant-based products are uniquely positioned to help answer those needs. So we offer a complete picture of the entire retail landscape, expanding beyond traditional conventional channels to include retail channels that place incubation and innovation at the very core of their identity. We maintain the most robust understanding of product attributes that are central to this incubation and innovation. And we are constantly reviewing and continuing to expand our coding based on the areas that are most important to consumers. And then we leverage that retail coverage and product intelligence to deliver insights through our best-in-class applications, our consultative arms, our thought leadership, and other portions of the industry. And we continue to invest, support, and broaden this understanding, both internally as well as through our partnerships with folks like GFI and PBFA. So SPINS partners with and supports retailers along the entire continuum of this innovation pipeline. And that really provides a complete understanding on shopper segmentation, from the most progressive to the most mainstream. And this complete visibility is of really different kinds of shoppers, and it really helps retailers, brands, and other industry partners have a complete picture of that total retail landscape. With over 3 million UPCs being tracked in our system and over 300 attributes and growing each year being applied against those UPCs, the ability to focus on key areas like sustainability, health and wellness, which I've mentioned, and the seeker and avoider shopper preferences are really unlocking how best to use these attributes. So for example, if we take this attribute understanding to the next level, there is really no part of the product presented to consumers that can't be uncovered or leveraged through data. Here you can see elements as simple as product size and description, but also label and certification claims that are made on the packaging. Information gleaned from the nutrition fact panel and the ingredients label form a backbone of an array of attributes that align to a shopper's desire to either seek out positive ingredient trends like low sugar or avoid other ingredients like animal-based products or the inclusion of grains such as gluten. Understanding the multiple ways that coding really layers on top of each other allows you to understand which segment plant-based shoppers are searching for. And for brands, this allows you to respond to consumer need states, for future product development. And for retailers, this really ensures that your product mix reflects what shoppers expect when they walk into your store. Okay, so now that I've introduced SPINS, our partners, in the depths of our coding, let's talk a little bit about the innovation that we're seeing in the plant-based market in 2021. So if we dive into the data today, it's really important to recognize that we have two different ways to think about plant-based coding. First, the plant-based diet attribute is rooted in the concept of eliminating all animal-derived ingredients from one's diet and is specifically designed to help shoppers adhere to a more rigorous form of plant-based eating. The second, the plant-based positioned attribute, focuses more on the alternative or the substitute concept. And note that these are products that still may contain certain ingredients, such as egg whites in a meat-free nugget or dairy cheese in a veggie burger. These products, for example, are still positioned as plant-based alternatives to meat and are found in plant-based subcategories that we track. And that's really kind of important to understand the entire spectrum of the various forms of plant-based eating. And just as a kind of final reminder before I move on, we'll be using the plant-based positioning attribute in all of our analyses today. So we're constantly reviewing new products and adjust and expand our coding to be more inclusive as product innovation into new categories grows or alignment between existing categories needs to be expanded. So much of the work that we've done over the last year has really been around the meat alternative segment of the market. We've simplified and normalized the coding of the product type attribute between the shelf stable, the frozen, and the refrigerated meat alternatives. And this really helps reflect an innovation to the market and to make aligning with traditional animal-based analogs much easier. And in conjunction with that product type rework, we've extended the animal type coding to both refrigerated and frozen meat alternatives. And this, again, improves the analysis for plant-based versus animal-based products. And then finally, we expanded the flavor attribute to the shelf-stable, frozen, and refrigerated categories. And we also included the jerky category, since we see a ton of innovation here, particularly with plant-based options. These changes are actively available to all of our users through our P3 release, which was conducted earlier this week. And it's through the relationships with GFI and PBFA and other brand and retail partners that we are able to collaborate on these additional expansions. Okay, so if we think about plant-based products and we use that performance as our baseline, we can then layer in some additional label-based or clean label claims that we track. So label-based claims like gluten-free or paleo are growing faster than even the baseline plant-based performance. And claims such as non-GMO and organic aren't growing as fast, but those factors could really kind of connect to things like climate change or global commodity challenges and higher rings that could account for these slower rates in these particular segments. With the maturation of the plant-based industry, we continue to see consumers looking for products with clean labels. So the massive growth in products excluding any of the major 8 allergens, for example, on the right, illustrate this preference, along with a decline in products that have artificial flavors. Shoppers are really expecting plant-based products to align to these really deeply held preferences on their part. Within the plant-based spectrum, we can also see diet preferences that are positioned with these products, which help to solve for multiple consumer preferences. So both paleo and FODMAP diets are exceeding the total growth for the plant-based market. Vegan here is at parity. And vegetarian and keto diets growing just a little slower than the plant-based year-over-year rate. So traditional plant-based products have typically leaned heavily on ingredients that include soy or wheat as their main ingredients. Here we're using those ingredient attributes to isolate products that exclude those ingredients to show growth rates that are higher than the overall plant-based rate. So protein from plant-based sources represents a really promising alternative to shoppers that identify with food-based allergens. So even tofu, tempeh, and seitan are seeing innovation that keeps pace with the other plant-based categories. The top growth from products that are excluding a treat nut, for example, on the ingredient list. And so this really opens up the idea that the plant-based segment can be many things to many shoppers. So those that have a preference for non-animal based products, but also have sensitivities and allergies that they must navigate, can find products in this segment really appealing. This provides incredible opportunities for new brands entering the space or existing brands expanding their portfolio of products. So you can either head to our website or drop us an email to learn more. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen.
Thanks, Jeff. So to set the stage, we will be sharing SPIN's retail data for the total plant-based marketplace. This is an aggregate of 2 channels: MULO, or the conventional multi-outlet, which includes conventional grocers like Kroger and mass retailers like Walmart, and the natural enhanced channel, which includes retailers such as Sprouts. The majority of the data is for the 52 weeks ending December 26, 2021, but in some cases, we take a look at a 2 or 3 year view, looking back 104 or 156 weeks. The plant-based products included in this data are only those that are direct substitutes for animal foods or products containing a main animal ingredient. Inherently plant-based foods, such as chickpeas or kale, are not included in this data. If you were to include those products, the volume would be significantly higher. We built this custom database by first pulling all products with SPIN's plant-based positioned product attribute. This data set was further edited by adding plant-based private label categories and subcategories and refining the plant-based eggs category. So it's important to note that this lens is somewhat custom. And for those of you who purchase SPIN's data, it may not map exactly to your reports. As you can see here, there are 9 high-level categories included: plant-based meat, milk, eggs, meals, condiments and dressings, bars, protein powders, tofu and tempeh, and other plant-based dairy, which includes cheese, yogurt, ice cream, butter, creamers, ready-to-drink beverages, and spreads, dips, and sauces. Later in the presentation, we will look at some of these individual categories in more detail. Just a bit more detail on the two channels. The Natural Enhanced channel encompasses just under 2,000 full format stores with over 2 million in annual sales and 40% or more of UPCs with coded sales from natural, organic, or specialty products. The conventional multi-outlet channel is composed of more than 111,000 retail locations spanning grocery, drug, mass, dollar, military, and club. In sum, as Jeff mentioned, this methodology allows us to have coverage of the vast majority of US retail food sales. To start, let's take a look at plant-based food growth in the US. Retail sales of plant-based foods grew 6% over the course of 2021 to hit 7.4 billion. This is up from just under 5 billion in 2018. Overall, plant-based food retail sales grew 3 times faster than total food retail sales, with most plant-based categories outpacing their conventional counterparts. Looking at individual categories, we can see that plant-based milk is the largest plant-based food category at 2.6 billion. Plant-based meat is the second largest category. After record growth in years prior, 2021 plant-based meat dollar sales remained strong, delivering a repeat year of 1.4 billion in sales and growing 74% in the past 3 years, again, outpacing conventional meat by almost 3 times. Plant-based private label offerings are also expanding. This slide displays various retailers and their plant-based private label coverage. Retailers like Kroger and Albertsons offer plant-based private label products across meat, milk, dairy, and meals. According to data from Mintel's 2021 plant-based proteins report, 55% of consumers would like to see more prepared foods made with meat alternatives. Here we compare the dollar sales growth of plant-based products to that of the animal-based products across key categories. The plant-based products are represented by the dark turquoise bars and the animal-based products by the yellow bars. Across most categories, plant-based product sales growth is significantly outpacing that of animal-based products, indicating that plant-based categories are earning higher dollar shares of the total categories. And here we can see the share of the market that plant-based foods have in each product category. The yellow bar below shows the 3-year relative growth in dollar share for each category from 2018 to 2021. And these numbers illustrate the momentum of these categories over time. So across the board, we can see the progress on share growth, as well as opportunities if categories like plant-based meat, eggs, meat, eggs, and other dairy categories successfully follow the trajectory of plant-based milk. The plant-based meat market today is, in ways, reminiscent of the plant-based milk market when it was in its early stages. With continued product innovation and consumer adoption, the plant-based meat category could have the potential to earn a similar dollar share of the total meat market. That opportunity represents a 14-point growth in plant-based meat's dollar share of the total meat market and is worth $16 billion. So who's driving increased plant-based foods purchasing? Consumers active in plant-based categories tend to be younger, from higher income brackets, and have college or graduate degrees. They're also more likely to have children and be people of color. While all people of color over-index for plant-based purchasing, Asian consumers in particular had high interaction. These demographic trends hold in terms of dollar indexes as well, with consumers aged 35 to 44, consumers with graduate degrees, and consumers with incomes greater than 100,000, all having higher levels of interaction. And now we'll take a closer look at plant-based meats. After record growth in years prior, 2021 plant-based meat dollars remained steady, delivering a repeat year of 1.4 billion in sales. Plant-based meat dollars grew 74% in the past 3 years, outpacing conventional meat by almost 3 times. Plant-based meat, particularly the plant-based burger category, continues to generate considerable interest with consumers, investors, and the media, in large part due to the next generation of plant-based meat products that closely mimic the sensory qualities of conventional meat. This plant-based meat 2.0 trend has seen startups and incumbent food companies alike launch products in both retail and food service. In terms of merchandising, an integrated segregated strategy where plant-based meat is merchandised in the meat aisle increases access for the majority of consumers. By shelving plant-based meat in the meat aisle, omnivore consumers could easily find plant-based products in the areas where they're already shopping for center-of-plate proteins. They can also better compare and appreciate premium products and trade up. Importantly, 76% of consumers say they prefer to shop for plant-based meat in the meat or frozen sections, compared to 24% who prefer the produce area. For categories with less developed portfolios like creamer or eggs, a fully integrated strategy may be a good option. In the US, we've seen substantial increases in plant-based meat sales after switching to integrated segregated merchandising. GFI worked with Heinen's to make the switch across meat, dairy, frozen, and deli categories, which resulted in a 43% increase in dollar sales in the first full year after they made the change, the year ending February 2020, outpacing typical plant-based growth. Kroger and our partners on this webinar, PBFA, also did a controlled study in Q1 2020 that found a 23% increase in plant-based meat sales compared to segregated merchandising. And here we can see some merchandising examples from Kroger in which the retailer integrates plant-based meat products alongside conventional meat. Let's compare analog and non-analog plant-based meat products. On the left, we show examples of analog products from brands like Beyond and Impossible that closely mimic animal-based products, while on the right are products from Dr. Prager's and Hillary's that are more plant-forward. We can see that some brands like Morningstar have both analog and non-analog product types. Analog products make up the majority of the plant-based meat category and drive category growth. By comparison, non-analog products like black bean burgers and veggie burgers make up only a small percentage of the overall plant-based meat category and actually saw a decline in dollar sales in 2021. However, it's important to note that there is room in the market for non-analog products, particularly for vegans and vegetarians and people who follow plant-forward or health-focused diets. The top-selling forms of plant-based meat are burgers, followed by sausage links and patties, and then nuggets, tenders, and cutlets. The fastest growing formats in 2021 were meatballs and other formats, with grounds showing the highest growth rate over 3 years ago. While plant-based burgers established the plant-based meat category, there's considerable room for innovation outside the burger subcategory. Companies are now beginning to focus on other types like breakfast patties, meatballs, and crab cakes. And there are many other plant-based meat product types that have yet to be innovated on in a significant way. Plant-based beef is the highest selling subcategory of plant-based meat, followed by plant-based chicken and pork. Plant-based pork showed the highest sales growth, 131% from 2018 to 2021. This is driven in part by new product launches. While sales are far lower for plant-based seafood compared to meat, dollar sales growth from 2018 to 21 was up 50% for plant-based fish and 18% for plant-based shellfish. Additionally, brands like Gathered Foods, maker of Good Catch, as well as New Wave Foods, secured major funding in 2021, indicating continued potential for this product type moving forward. When it comes down to it, as you know, if it's not on the shelf, merchandising and marketing won't matter. Consumers are looking for more diversity in product types with alternative proteins. Steak and other whole cuts, bone-in, structured chicken, these are all underrepresented. Customers are also looking for format versatility and different flavor profiles, as well as unit sizes to complement a variety of eating styles. There are a couple of clear opportunities in terms of engaging the butcher, deli, and prepared food sections. In the US, for example, although plant-based meat accounts for just under 3% of all dollar sales for retail packaged meat, random weight plant-based meat is still an enormous white space. And I'll note that GFI's current research grant program is helping to raise foundational knowledge when it comes to producing alternatives to whole cuts of meat that are often found in the butcher section. So where are the biggest opportunity areas for plant-based food? Taste and price are the key areas of focus right now. Study after study indicates that consumers are looking for improved taste in these products. Price parity with conventional meat remains a significant opportunity, as plant-based meat on average is twice as expensive per pound, according to GFI's analysis of the Power of Meat 2022. According to Mintel, 20% of consumers who don't eat plant-based proteins say it's too expensive, as do 26% of consumers who are eating plant-based proteins less often. Still, we see that plant-based products are currently closer to matching prices of premium, organic, grass-fed meat and dairy products, and several brands continue to work to lower their prices. And now I'll turn it over to Julie.
Thank you. I was involved in the looking at all the questions coming in. Thank you. Taking a step back, plant-based milk dollar sales grew 33% in the past 3 years to reach $2.6 billion in 2021. Plant-based milk represents 35% of all plant-based foods. And it grew 21% in 2020. This is 4 times the growth in 2019, and plant-based milk still grew in 2021, up 4%. And this growth is attributed to both continued innovation and expanded space. Innovation is driven by advancements in ingredient diversification and product development to improve taste, functionality, nutrition, which we will see throughout the rest of all the remaining categories as well. Plant-based milk space is expanding both in refrigerated, which resides next to animal-based milk, of course, and in shelf stable. Within the refrigerated set, retailers are dedicating up to 30% of the space with clear signage, all making it easy to shop. And we'll see an example of this shortly. As other categories begin to follow these merchandising principles, as Karen explained earlier, there are billions of dollars of category of opportunity within the plant-based foods industry. Market share is a strong indicator of the power of a category. And as we saw earlier, plant-based milk now represents 16% of all milk sold in grocery retail, with share growth of 20% over the past 3 years. So all indicators for plant-based milk show growth: dollar and unit sales, market share, repeat rate, distribution, projected buyers, which are expected to increase by 2.3 million, purchase occasions, and dollars per buyer. Households purchasing plant-based milk grew by 4 percentage points, with now 42% of households now purchasing plant-based milk, and repeat buyers grew to 76%. With regard to new items, 45 new items were introduced in 2021, some with a focus in indulgence as well as nutrition, including chocolate cashew, hazelnut, and walnuts. Refrigerated plant-based milk comprises 89% of all plant-based milk, and shelf-stable represents the remaining 11%. Plant-based shelf-stable milk did decline it declined 2.6%, given the lack of panic buying that occurred in 2020. That was not repeated in 2021. So the largest segment of plant-based milk being refrigerated actually grew 5%. In the natural channel, plant-based milk represents 40% of all milk sold, growing 6 percentage points, and 6 percentage points in just 3 years on a large base. So this is further demonstrating plant-based milk's potential for the broader market. All of this together demonstrates that plant-based milk remains a steadily growing category. We have a lot to learn from it with no signs of stopping. So plant-based milk is the category's growth engine. For the first time in 3 years, animal-based milk dollar sales declined, making plant-based milk the growth engine for the total milk category. Plant-based milk contributed absolute dollar volume growth of over 100 million, while animal-based milk lost over 200 million. As we look at milk shown by product type, here's where we see the innovation. So as we see here by type, almond milk remains the largest category, the leader, 59% of all dollar sales, which increased 2% over the 14% in 2020, so strong growth. Oat milk is the second largest segment, growing over 44 times in the past 3 years, now making up 17% of category sales. We do see that soy, coconut, and blends have declined. The category of other grew 2% in 2021 and 12% in 2019 on a relatively large base. And this is where we see tremendous innovation. So other, the category of other, includes plant-based milks made from, and I'm going to list them all, flax, pistachio, rice, cashew, peanut, walnut, pea, hemp, tiger nut, upcycled barley, macadamia, banana, and avocado. We'll see this type of innovation is really what's going to help other categories grow as well in innovation. So this photo was taken at a Kroger last week. Can we have that? Again, 30% of the milk space dedicated to plant-based milk with clear signage. And we're seeing this kind of expansion throughout the industry. And to put it in perspective, with a 16% market share and allowing for that growth to meet consumer demand is very exciting. And we're also seeing signage that provides product education and the local farm where the ingredients were produced. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer Holtz, PBFA's data and research consultant, to take us through the many other categories contributing to plant-based foods growth.
Thank you, Jay. The success of plant-based milk has laid the groundwork for major growth in other plant-based dairy categories, which reached $2.1 billion in total sales in 2021. Categories like ready-to-drink beverages and plant-based creamers experienced rapid growth as plant-based milk consumers increasingly entered these adjacent categories. Across the store, plant-based dairy dollar sales are growing faster than most animal-based products. In 2021, plant-based creamers are the fastest growing category and are now the third largest plant-based category, with a 134% growth in dollar sales since 2018, and dollar sales over $500 million in 2021. Plant-based creamer dollar sales grew by 33% in 2021 to a 9% dollar share of all creamers sold. In the natural enhanced channel, where innovation and adoption often begins, plant-based creamers dollar share grew to 33% of all creamers sold. Creamer innovation includes many of the same ingredients as milk, but now offers functional ingredients as well, like mushrooms and other adaptogens. Looking at ice cream, dollar sales of plant-based ice cream and frozen desserts grew 41% over the past 3 years to almost $500 million in sales. Over 1/3 of non-dairy ice creams and frozen yogurt now use coconut as a dairy alternative. Sunflower butter, cashews, and pea protein are also used as a plant-based ingredient as well. Looking at yogurt, plant-based yogurt dollar sales grew 9%, 3 times the rate of animal-based yogurt, to a 4.5% dollar share of total yogurt. In the last 3 years, yogurt has grown a whopping 76%. The natural channel share of yogurt grew to a 21% share of all yogurt sold. Households purchasing plant-based yogurt also grew 20% in the last 2 years. Additional innovation is fueled by environmentally friendly ingredients such as pili nuts and macadamia nuts. Expectations are that yogurt, along with other plant-based dairy categories, will continue in the path of plant-based milk's innovation, applying various seeds and nuts as ingredients, continuing to expand innovation towards products that mimic the taste and texture of animal-based yogurt. An opportunity also exists to tap into the growing popularity of oat, coconut, and pea protein, as well as rich and creamy ingredients like avocado. Plant-based cheese dollars grew 7% in 2021, while animal-based cheese declined 2%. Plant-based cheese dollar sales grew 85% over the last 3 years. The percent of households purchasing plant-based cheese also grew 46% over the last 2 years. The plant-based cheese category is also fueled by ingredient innovation from cashews, macadamia nuts, legumes, and most recently, watermelon seeds. Products are offered in familiar forms such as shreds and slices and even mozzarella for pizza. Hemp seeds and pumpkin seeds are also emerging as ingredient options as seeds contain healthy fats and nutritional benefits, making them attractive for plant-based cheese as well as other categories. Merchandising for plant-based cheese is also evolving, with some retailers moving plant-based products into the animal-based cheese set, making it easier for shoppers to find and purchase. Plant-based butter dollar sales grew 9% in 2021 to a 6% share of all butters sold, while animal butter declined 12%. Plant-based butter has also grown through innovation using ingredients such as cashews, macadamia nuts, as well as coconut and avocado oils. The pandemic allowed for increased adoption of all types of plant-based categories, including condiments, dressing, and mayo. Dollar sales in this category grew 6% in 2021, 30% in 2020, and grew a total of 20% over the last 3 years. As cooking and snacking at home from the pandemic continues, dairy spreads, dips, sour cream, and cooking sauces dollar sales grew 20% in 2021 over a tremendous growth year in 2020 of over 90%. Other important categories include meals, eggs, tofu and tempeh, ready-to-drink beverages, protein powders, bars, and baked goods and snacks. Dollar sales of plant-based meals, the fourth largest plant-based category, grew 9%. This category is meeting consumers exactly where they are, with a broad array of cuisines, including Asian, Thai, Italian, Mexican, as well as comfort foods like mac and cheese, pizza, and burritos made with plant-based meat and cheese. In addition, this category includes soups with ingredients like plant-based chicken. Plant-based meals are now offered for every meal occasion, including breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacking. The plant-based eggs category also grew rapidly in 2021 with a 42% increase in dollar sales. Since 2019, plant-based eggs have tripled their market share. The percentage of repeat buyers also grew by 19 points in the last 2 years to reach 54% in 2021. And with animal-based egg dollar sales declining by 4% in 2021, plant-based eggs have grown to nearly 1% share of the total egg market, making plant-based eggs a growth driver of this category. Plant-based eggs has seen extensive innovation and functionality and offer substantial environmental, allergen safety, animal welfare, and food safety benefits. While tofu experienced a decline in 2021 in sales and households purchasing overall, the category overall has grown in the past 3 years. So looking at 2019, since then, the category grew 24% and households purchasing tofu increased 9%. Insights from a major supplier of fast casual food service indicated there was a significant pivot from food service to retail in 2020, and volume is now shifting back to food service, which may help explain the category sales performance at retail this past year. We are seeing innovation within tofu as well, offering seasoned, prepared products in a variety of forms, such as nuggets and burgers, with flavors such as Cajun and curry. Overall, tofu continues to offer simplicity and versatility with new flavors in a variety of forms. Protein powder dollar sales grew 10% in 2021 and 29% in the last 3 years. The average unit price of protein powder decreased 10% last year. Taste and functionality remain a top priority for consumers. Although soy has widespread popularity, pea protein and rice protein are also prevalent. Ready-to-drink beverage dollar sales grew 22% in 2021 and 87% in the last 3 years. Ready-to-drink beverages includes coffee and teas that feature plant-based milk as an ingredient. Plant-based bar dollar sales declined in 2020 as this is an on-the-go item that was negatively impacted by the pandemic, but dollar sales grew 1% in 2021, and we look forward to innovation continuing with plant protein ingredients such as pea, pumpkin seeds, and lentil replacing whey protein. Plant-based bars also notably experienced a 12% average unit price increase in 2021. Looking now at baked goods and snacks, according to SPINS, baked goods and alternative snack categories, while not in our 2021 total plant-based foods data set, represents a growing area where brands are continuing to innovate with an increasing number of plant-based options. An early stage of development in these adjacent categories, we rely on vegan coding to help understand where plant-based options are moving beyond the traditional plant-based categories. For baked goods, the animal products being replaced with plant-based counterparts may commonly include eggs and butter. Dollar sales of vegan baked goods grew 3% in 2021 and 417% over the last 3 years. For vegan snacks, when cheese and pork, such as in pork rinds, are replaced with plant-based ingredients, the resultant product may also be considered an alternative. It should be noted that some of these products do not contain direct replacements for animal products, but rather use plants such as cauliflower, asparagus, kale, legumes, and beans as primary ingredients, improving nutritional profiles and contributing to plant-forward diets. Dollar sales in this segment grew 5% in 2021 and 250% over the last 3 years. And with that, I would now like to turn things back to Emma, who will be moderating our Q&A.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to all of our speakers today. That concludes the presentation portion of the webinar, and now we'll be moving on to our Q&A session. And I'll also say again that we will be sending all registrants a direct link to today's slides, as well as a recording of this webinar. I also welcome you to sign up for GFI's Alternative Protein Opportunity newsletter to receive monthly updates on the alt protein industry and new resources. And at this point, we'd love to take a few questions. Please continue to feel free adding questions to the Q&A box. I'll extend our first question to Julie. Julie, what's motivating consumers to switch to plant-based foods from animal products? And what are some of the major barriers that we're seeing for consumers purchasing more plant-based products?
Thank you. So the motivators, excuse me, remain consistent throughout time. So health remains the number one reason why people, excuse me, choose plant-based foods over animal-based foods. Also the environment is the fastest growing motivator, with the younger generations more fully engaged in this category. So sustainability is a huge element. And then of course, animal welfare, social justice is coming into the conversation, very important. So there's a lot of reasons, and the barriers really, we point to price as one of the largest barriers. When we talk about meat and dairy, there's the aspect of not having the same subsidies that animal-based does. There is the opportunity for scaling. The industry is still has the benefit of scale forthcoming, but that currently impacts price. So price is really a significant barrier for those reasons.
Thanks, Julie. Any other comments on motivators or barriers from Karen or Jeff?
Yeah, I would just say that, we we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't understand the supply chain issues that obviously kind of fall into this. And, I think a lot of the numbers that we may see not being as bright as we like, for example, in plant-based meat, may be really associated to some of those supply chain issues. And so, I think the incredible growth that we've seen over the last couple of years certainly position, the market, plant-based foods, to grow really well against animal products, but obviously there are a couple of headwinds there.
Thanks, Jeff. Karen, anything to add there?
No, I agree. I was going to add some of that context as well, but I agree with Julie and Jeff.
Thank you. And Jeff, I think, your mention of supply chain issues and this past year's plant-based meat category performance numbers, I think that ties well into some of the other questions we saw, questions like, what do we think happened in 2021 in the plant-based meat dollar sales growth area? What factors may have reduced the growth of plant-based food categories? And I'll point people to a blog post that GFI put together that digs much deeper into plant-based meat category performance this year. But to summarize, sort of the overarching patterns that we're seeing, yes, dollar sales of plant-based meat were flat in 2021 over 2020. We do have to note that 2020 was a record year of growth. And what we can see is that pandemic insights created some noise in retail sales data. They led to unusually high category growth in 2020, which of course made it a tough year to compare sales against in 2021. And I think that highlights the need to look at some longer term trends and compare performance to 2019, past years for a clearer long-term picture if you're interested in the long term. And in the long term, we do see that plant-based meat is a growth proposition, and it's likely to return to stable long-term growth, similar to that seen in other categories, other emerging or recently emerged categories, such as natural and organic, or such as plant-based milk. We also saw inflation in meat prices skew comparisons to conventional meat sales performance. So conventional meat sales actually declined more rapidly than plant-based meat sales did on a unit basis. So conventional meat's dollar sales growth this last year was driven entirely by higher prices, not by an increase in consumer demand. And so when you're making that comparison, you have to keep that thing in mind, those dynamics. We did see, as Jeff mentioned, some ingredient and supply chain disruptions that further complicated the picture. Out of stock items were not uncommon across plant-based categories and frankly, across the meat department too. Another thing of note is we have heard from a couple different sources that velocity for plant-based meat declined in 2021, and that does signal some major opportunities to strengthen consumer engagement with the plant-based meat category. So I think at a high level, despite the growth seen in the last decade, the success of the plant-based meat category is not inevitable. More investment and innovation are needed to ensure that plant-based proteins can compete with the conventional products on the key drivers of consumer choice that Julie and Jeff and Karen have talked about, like taste and price and accessibility. And I'll make sure that we link to that blog too. This next question I want to send to Julie. Do you have any research on the integrated segregated shelving strategy for other categories beyond plant-based meat, such as cheese?
Mm-hmm. So the short answer is no. There was not for lack of interest on behalf of the industry. On the heels of publishing the Kroger meat control store meat study, that was the very next question that the industry, both brands and retailers, wanted. And due to everything that we've talked about, supply chain, labor shortages, all that the industry has been facing, we were not able to continue with control store tests. What we do know is that there was a significant advancement with a particular brand, BioLife with Albertsons. They cut in a significant it was actually 10 items, 6 branded and 4 private label into the cheese section. The initial results are extremely strong. we highlight that and pay attention to it and track it in the absence of being able to do control store tests. Advancements like that are very important to watch, but all that to say, there's a lot of interest on behalf of the industry for this category because it's the only other one really other than meat that has not been fully established as integrated, segregated in your section. So that's a great question. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Julie. Our next question, I'll pass to Karen. Karen, are we including plant-based seafood in the meat category? And do we have additional data on plant-based seafood?
Yes, thank you. We are including plant-based seafood in our total plant-based meat category, but we do dive deeper in our upcoming State of the Industry reports about plant-based seafood specifically. And we know that plant-based seafood dollar sales increased by 14% in 2021, outpacing total plant-based meat sales. Yet it still remains a very small fraction of the total plant-based meat and seafood category. So a lot has to do with the growth has to do with the new product launches that we've seen in 2021. A quick example, a year ago, only 32 plant-based seafood products were sold in the US, and 2021 saw 8 plant-based seafood products with their first sales in US retail, which grew the product base by about 25%. So increasing innovation and availability, there's definitely a high level of interest in this plant-based subcategory.
Thank you, Karen. And again, people can visit GFI's and PBFA's websites for more in-depth analysis on some of these subcategories. Next question is for Julie. Julie, we had a question about how trucking and other supply chain issues are affecting sales growth. And somebody mentioned that Bloomberg often discusses the slowing of some major labels, but not necessarily the industry as a whole. I know, Julie, you have relationships with a lot of large retailers. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, the discussions, the ongoing consistent discussions that we have with a broad representation of the market is that it impacted the entire store. No category was left untouched by this. Is, as we know, this is just an unprecedented situation that retailers or brands are facing. So I think, you know, we dug in to see whether or not there was more impact to plant-based versus animal-based, just to see if there was something there for us to understand, and that's not the case. So I appreciate the question.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. And then this next question, there were some questions about the household panel data, sort of like the nature of repeat rates or household penetration rates. Jennifer, could you walk us through, maybe using a category or two as an example, what those figures that we were talking about, what they mean?
Absolutely. Thanks, Emma. So we use the National Consumer Panel, which is, it basically looks at 125 million households across the US. And the way that data is collected is you are a member of the panel and you put in your receipts for what you're purchasing, and those are tracked over time. So, for example, we look at what someone is purchasing this year as far as the household that is purchasing. And again, this is based on receipts that they are entering. And then it's broken down by the categories that they're purchasing, what they purchased the year before, as well as what they're purchasing across several categories. We actually looked at 10 categories this year, and then how that repeat changes over time. And what we're seeing when we look across the board at plant-based foods in general is that trend has continued to increase, not only with plant-based foods in total, but also in those categories that we were discussing. So with milk and meat and cheese and eggs was also a big one that we called out. Wonderful.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I think we're actually at time. Thank you for your attendance today. Thank you, speakers, for presenting. Everyone, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions that we didn't get to in our limited time. And to learn more, feel free to Check out our wealth of resources at gfi.org and pbfa.org. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.